The sky was darker than usual. Clouds formed a heavy blanket over Earth's atmosphere, making the world feel as though it was holding its breath. The peaceful silence was shattered by the hum of engines, alien engines. The invasion had begun. For years, the galaxy had been dominated by an alien race called the Zathar, ruthless, merciless, and driven by a singular desire for power. The Zathar had left no planet untouched in their conquest for supremacy. They had traveled from star to star, conquering worlds, enslaving civilizations, and annihilating anyone who stood in their way. Now their sights were set on Earth. The Zathar commander, Vok, a towering figure with scales as hard as metal and eyes that glowed with cold malice, stood at the helm of his flagship, staring out at the blue planet below. He was not a leader who believed in mercy or second chances. Earth, he thought, would be just another conquest, a small primitive world that would fall with little resistance. The humans were weak, they were divided, and their technology was far behind the power of the Zathar. It would be a simple matter to wipe them out, just like every other species that had dared to resist. As the Zathar fleet descended through the atmosphere, their ships, massive, dark, and shaped like predatory creatures, sliced through the clouds with terrifying ease. The sound of their engines echoed across the world, striking fear into the hearts of the people below. The humans had no chance. At least that's what Vok believed. But far below, on Earth's surface, there was one man who refused to give in to fear. Commander James Caldwell stood in a command room beneath the ground, his face lit by the dim glow of a holographic map. His eyes were fixed on the screens that showed the Zathar fleet descending on his world. There was no time to waste. The humans were outnumbered and outgunned, and yet he knew they still had a chance to survive. He had faith in something far stronger than weapons or technology, a belief that would define humanity's fate. For years, the United Earth Alliance had been preparing for a moment like this. They had known that an alien threat could one day arrive, and so they had begun an experimental program, hidden away from the public eye. This program was known only to a select few, and its purpose was to create something beyond human limits, a force that could withstand the might of any invader. But the program had come at a cost. It had taken years to develop, and it had required a sacrifice of morality and ethics. The soldiers who volunteered for the project were subjected to intense trials, undergoing genetic modifications and enhancements that were beyond anything the world had ever seen. Now, Commander Caldwell stood in front of a wall of monitors, staring at the data with a deep sense of urgency. The time had come to put everything on the line. The Zathar were coming, and humanity's survival rested on the success of a single operation, one that could tip the scales of the war in their favor. The program, however, was still a secret, even to most of the Earth's leaders. The weapon they had created was not one of machines or firearms. It was something far more unpredictable, a living force, born from the combination of human ingenuity and animal instinct. The creature, known only by its codename, Beast, had been kept under wraps, its powers hidden from the public for fear of the consequences. But now, there was no time for secrecy. James Caldwell took a deep breath, the weight of the world on his shoulders. He had to make the call. The Zathar commander, Vok, believed the humans were weak, and he was about to learn just how wrong he was. A single transmission was all it took. "Activate the beast," Caldwell ordered, his voice steady, though his heart pounded in his chest. It was a command that would change everything. Above, the Zathar ships prepared to deploy their forces. They were ready to crush the humans, to wipe out any resistance with overwhelming force. Vok was confident. His soldiers, elite warriors from across the galaxy, were already preparing to storm the planet's surface. In his mind, Earth was already as good as conquered. It was just a matter of finishing the job. But something was happening beneath the surface. Deep underground, hidden in a high-tech military facility, a different kind of power was stirring. The beast, the creation of years of secret work, was waking up. Its body, once small and unassuming, was beginning to grow at an alarming rate. Its instincts were sharpening, its senses heightening, and its strength multiplying with every passing second. The Zathar, in their arrogance, had no idea that a creature more dangerous than anything they had ever encountered was about to be unleashed. In the alien command ship, Jill and Vok received word from his scouts. They had detected a strange energy signature emanating from below the surface of the planet. He frowned. This was not something he had anticipated. Ignore it, he ordered, dismissing the report. The Zathar fleet was far superior in technology, and they had already overwhelmed Earth's defenses. There was no need to worry about insignificant anomalies. But beneath the surface, the beast was no longer an anomaly. It was the answer to humanity's desperate hope, a force born from science and raw power. As the alien commander continued his march toward victory, he failed to see the one thing that would shatter his plans completely. Humanity wasn't as weak as he thought. Not by a long shot. The countdown had begun. In mere moments, the Zathar fleet would touch down on Earth, and the fate of the planet would be sealed. But James Caldwell had one last card to play. He could only hope that the beast would be enough to turn the tide before it was too late. As the massive alien ships hovered above the planet's surface, their weapons primed, the ground beneath them rumbled. It was not the trembling of a planet in fear, but the pulse of something far more dangerous, something that had been waiting for this moment. The Zathar were about to learn a lesson they would never forget. Never underestimate humanity. The Earth trembled as the first wave of alien ships descended through the atmosphere. The alien invaders, the Zathar, were here. Their fleet was vast. Dozens of colossal warships, each larger than anything humanity had ever seen, descending from the sky like a swarm of metal vultures. The alien commander, Jill and Vok, was confident that the Earth would fall easily. His forces were unmatched, their weapons capable of obliterating entire cities with a single strike. The humans, weak and unprepared, stood no chance. The Zathar commander believed it was merely a matter of time before they crushed any resistance. As the Zathar ships hovered over major cities, the skies above were filled with a dark, ominous hum. The people below watched, paralyzed by fear, knowing that they had no hope against such an advanced and merciless enemy. But the human leaders were not without a plan. They had kept their secret weapon hidden, a weapon that could change the tide of this war. The world was about to witness something that would make even the strongest alien warriors tremble in fear. In a quiet military base beneath the surface, deep in the heart of a remote region, a group of scientists and soldiers gathered in a high-tech underground facility. Commander James Caldwell stood in front of a large metal door, his expression grim. He knew what had to be done. The time had come for humanity's secret weapon to be unleashed. This weapon was not a machine of war or a technological marvel. It was something far more unexpected, something that no one, not even the Zathar, would ever see coming. Behind the metal door was the key to humanity's survival, a creature born from an unprecedented experiment. Years of research, genetic modification, and breeding had gone into creating it. This creature was part human, part predator, designed to be the perfect weapon. It had been kept hidden, its existence known only to a select few within the highest ranks of the United Earth Alliance. Those who had worked on the project had sworn to keep it a secret, fearing the potential dangers it could bring if it ever fell into the wrong hands. But now, with the invasion underway, it was their last hope. The creature was humanity's only chance to stand against the alien horde. The door opened with a hiss, and inside, a large cage stood at the center of a sterile, dimly lit room. The creature inside, a creature that looked more like a monstrous wolf than anything human, lay on the cold metal floor. Its fur was thick, dark, and glistening with an unnatural sheen. Its eyes, bright and intelligent, flicked open as the door creaked. The creature, despite its intimidating appearance, looked calm, almost as if it was waiting for something. And that something was the signal from its creator, Commander Caldwell. Caldwell walked toward the cage, his footsteps echoing in the quiet room. The creature watched him intently, its eyes filled with a strange recognition. It stood up, its muscles rippling beneath its fur, and for a moment, it seemed almost human in its movements. The bond between the creature and the commander was deep. It was a bond forged in secrecy, in fear, and in hope. As Caldwell stood in front of the cage, he gave the command, "Unleash the beast." The words were simple, but they held weight far greater than their meaning. The creature's eyes gleamed with a fierce intensity, and it let out a low growl that reverberated through the room. It was no longer the docile creature that had been contained for years. It was ready. The cage door slid open, and the beast stepped out, its powerful form filling the room. It stood at least 8 feet tall, its claws sharp enough to rip through metal. Its teeth were as long as daggers, and its eyes glowed with an inner fire that spoke of something far beyond the limits of human understanding. Outside, the alien fleet was already beginning to land, their troops preparing to storm the planet's surface. Gillen Vok stood on the bridge of his flagship, confident in his impending victory. His soldiers were ready, and they would wipe out the humans with ease. But then, a strange signal appeared on his screens, an anomaly in the data, something that wasn't supposed to be there. It was a small blip, a single surge of energy from below the surface of the planet. He dismissed it at first, believing it to be some form of human resistance. But the surge continued, growing stronger and stronger with each passing moment. Suddenly, a voice echoed in the command center of Earth's military base. "Commander Caldwell, we've confirmed it. The beast has been unleashed. It's on the surface." Caldwell turned from the creature, his face grim but determined. "It's time. Prepare for the attack." The beast had been designed to be humanity's last line of defense, a force unlike anything the Zathar had ever seen. It was fast, strong, and ruthless. Its instincts were sharp, and its senses were heightened far beyond any ordinary human or animal. It was a living weapon, capable of taking on an entire alien army if necessary. As the Zathar forces began to advance across the planet, they suddenly encountered something unexpected. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the air seemed to hum with a strange energy. The first wave of alien soldiers, confident and ready to destroy, were suddenly thrown into chaos. In the distance, they saw it, a massive figure charging toward them, moving faster than any creature they had ever encountered. The beast leaped into the fray, its powerful limbs propelling it across the battlefield with terrifying speed. It tore through the Zathar ranks, its claws slashing through armor as if it were paper. The soldiers who had been so confident moments before were now scrambling to escape, their weapons useless against the sheer force of the beast's attack. Its growls echoed through the battlefield as it raged against the invaders, each movement a deadly strike against those foolish enough to stand in its way. Gillen Vok watched in shock from his flagship, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. The humans had unleashed a creature that he could not defeat. The Zathar, who had conquered countless worlds, were now being slaughtered by this single being. This was no mere weapon. It was a living nightmare, a force of nature that had been hidden from the galaxy for far too long. His mind raced, trying to formulate a new strategy, but it was too late. The beast was unstoppable. Back on Earth, Commander Caldwell watched the chaos unfold on his screens. The beast was doing exactly what it had been created for, destroying the alien invaders with ruthless efficiency. But the battle was far from over. The Zathar were relentless, and they would not give up easily. But for now, humanity had one advantage, a weapon unlike any other, a creature that would make even the most fearsome alien tremble in fear. As the beast continued its rampage, a single thought crossed Caldwell's mind. The Zathar commander may have underestimated humanity, but now he was about to learn the true meaning of the word fear. For centuries, Earth had watched silently as the stars flickered above, unaware that something ancient and powerful lay buried beneath its very surface. No human knew that long before history began. A secret had been locked deep within the core of the planet, placed there by beings not from this galaxy. It was not a weapon, nor a machine. It was something far older, something alive. And when the sky darkened with the arrival of the Drexen fleet, a ruthless alien race that had consumed dozens of civilizations, that secret stirred for the first time in thousands of years. The Drexen were confident, as they always were. Their ships, dark and spiked like metal insects, blocked the sun over every continent. Their message was clear: surrender or be wiped from existence. The leaders of Earth, despite all their technology and armies, knew that they could not resist such a massive force. The people panicked. Cities fell into chaos. Satellites were disabled. Communication was lost, and a cold shadow of hopelessness covered the world. But while humans feared the invaders, the planet itself was awakening. In a small and forgotten desert in the middle of nowhere, a tremor shook the ground. The local people thought it was an earthquake, but scientists detected something else, a strange energy pulse rising from below, something unlike any natural phenomenon. A team was immediately dispatched, led by a quiet but brilliant geologist named Dr. Elena Ward. She had studied seismic activity her whole life, but had never seen anything like this. The ground was humming, not just shaking, and strange symbols began to appear on the rocks, symbols that seemed to move and change when no one was looking. Her instruments picked up impossible readings. The air itself felt heavier, charged with something ancient. Then one night, while studying the site, she had a vision. She saw a massive shape slumbering in darkness, wrapped in coils of stone and flame. A voice spoke to her, not in words, but in emotions: fear, anger, pain, and finally, a promise of protection. At first, she thought she was losing her mind, but the next day, the energy levels spiked, and a part of the desert simply collapsed inward, revealing a massive underground structure that had been hidden for ages. She stepped inside, heart pounding, and found walls that shimmered with light, even though there was no power. At the center was a chamber, and in it, something pulsed gently like a heartbeat. She reached out without understanding why and touched the surface. The moment her skin made contact, a wave of light surged through her, and her mind was filled with images of destruction and salvation. Images of a war between stars, of a creature born to protect life, sealed away to one day return. She realized then that the planet itself had been keeping this guardian hidden, and now it had chosen her as its voice. Far above, on the Drexen flagship, the alien commander Vrillon watched Earth's response with amusement. Their weapons were powerful, yes, but weak in comparison to his army. His soldiers had already begun preparing for the extermination of Earth's population. Their biological scanners had picked up the energy pulse from the desert, but they ignored it. After all, what could one anomaly do against an entire fleet? But that ignorance would cost them dearly. As they launched their attack, targeting key military installations, something answered from the planet's core. The air screamed as a beam of pure energy shot from the Earth into the sky, slicing through one of the Drexen warships like it was paper. The ship exploded in a silent burst of light, sending panic through the alien command. On the ground, the chamber where Elena stood cracked open further, revealing a being unlike any human or alien. Tall, glowing with shifting colors of energy, and surrounded by a field that bent space itself. It looked at her, not with eyes, but with understanding. She felt its thoughts enter her mind. "I am the Sentinel. You have awakened me." Elena, though shaking with fear, nodded. "We need your help. They're going to destroy everything." The being slowly rose, floating into the air, and its voice echoed in every mind on Earth and beyond. "Then let them face the hidden power they have forgotten." The Sentinel launched into the sky, and every Drexen ship immediately locked on to the energy source. But before they could fire, it unleashed its true form. It twisted the very laws of physics, moving faster than light, bending space, and striking with such force that the warships broke apart before they could react. The Drexon were no longer attacking. They were retreating. Panic spread among them. Their technology could not track it, their weapons could not touch it, and their minds were breaking under the pressure of a power they could not understand. Vrilon screamed for reinforcements, but it was too late. The Sentinel had been patient for ages, and now it was free. On Earth, the people watched the skies in silence as fire and light danced in the atmosphere. News channels returned, streaming the impossible battle above. Cities stopped panicking. For the first time in days, there was hope. Elena watched from the desert, her heart full of awe and fear. The Sentinel was not just fighting, it was judging. And in the quiet between explosions, she wondered, what else had Earth hidden? What other powers slept beneath their feet? When the last Drexon ship exploded in orbit, the skies cleared. The Sentinel returned to the chamber, now glowing with new energy. The threat is over for now, it said. But many eyes will turn to this planet. You must be ready. Elena asked, will you help us again? The Sentinel responded, only if you remain true. This power is not for war. It is for balance. And with that, it sank back into the earth, the chamber sealing once more. Dr. Elena Ward became a quiet legend. She told no one the full truth, but she guided the world's leaders to prepare for what might come. Satellites were rebuilt. Communication resumed. People of Earth healed slowly, never knowing the full scale of what had saved them. But somewhere deep below, the hidden power remained, watching, waiting, not just to protect, but to remind the galaxy that even in silence, some forces are never truly asleep. In the far reaches of space, where the stars were cold and silent, the last human colony floated quietly around a dying red star. After the destruction of Earth during the Great Collapse, only a few thousand humans had survived, scattered across deep space colonies like fragile seeds hoping to grow in barren soil. One such colony was Haven 7, hidden inside a massive asteroid that had been converted into a livable station. Life there was tough but peaceful, until the day the alarms echoed through the steel corridors and turned that peace into panic. A deep space signal, coded in an ancient language only known to military archives, had been received. An old enemy had returned. The Skarn, a ruthless insectoid species that once tried to wipe out humanity, had found them again. No one knew how. Perhaps a scout ship sent a signal before being destroyed. Perhaps they had never truly lost the trail. But what mattered now was this. The Skarn fleet was coming, and the colony had less than 72 hours to prepare. Commander Elias Grant, a grizzled veteran of old wars, and now the reluctant leader of Haven 7's defense, stood at the central command chamber, staring at the incoming fleet on the holographic screen. They were outnumbered 100 to 1. The colony had a few defense cannons, some aging fighters, and a crew made mostly of engineers, miners, and civilians. This was not an army. This was not a battlefield. But this was home, and they had nowhere left to run. Elias called an emergency assembly, his voice calm but firm. He told the people the truth. No lies, no false hope. We're not soldiers, but we're human, he said. And humanity doesn't go quietly. If we must fall, we fall fighting. But if there's even one chance to survive, we take it together. The next 2 days turned the colony into a hive of activity. Old machinery was rewired into weapons. Mining drones were reprogrammed for combat. Civilians trained with whatever they could hold. Welding torches, metal rods, even kitchen knives. The engineers worked day and night to reinforce the outer shell, setting traps and magnetic mines in the empty space beyond the asteroid. A young mechanic named Lara, barely 20, discovered a forgotten prototype buried deep in the station's maintenance levels. It was a compact fighter, experimental and unstable, but faster and stronger than anything they had. She fixed it with trembling hands, knowing that if it flew, it could turn the tide. If it failed, she wouldn't survive to know. The day of the attack came with no warning. The sky beyond Haven 7, filled with black ships shaped like knives. The first wave hit hard, shaking the entire station. Explosions tore through the outer hull, and defense cannons fired blindly into space. Elias led the command crew from the central chamber, barking orders, rerouting power, and coordinating defense fighters like a maestro in a storm of death. Lyra flew the prototype herself, darting through enemy lines with impossible speed, drawing fire away from the station. Her ship became a symbol on every screen, a streak of light against a wall of darkness. She wasn't a pilot. She had never fought a battle. But she flew like she had something to prove, not just for herself, but for all of humanity. The battle raged for hours. The station's defenses started failing. Skarn boarding pods breached the outer walls. Hand-to-hand combat erupted in narrow corridors. Miners fought with drills and gravity hammers. Children were hidden in the deepest chambers while their parents fought above them. Blood was spilled, screams echoed, but still the colony stood. Elias was wounded by a Skarn blade, but refused to leave the command center. He knew they had to buy time, just enough for one last trick. Lyra had discovered during her repairs that the prototype fighter had a hidden core, something old, possibly from Earth's final war. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a miniature singularity drive, a controlled black hole. If she flew it into the center of the Skarn fleet and triggered the core, it would destroy everything within a massive radius. But it would also destroy her. She didn't hesitate. She didn't tell anyone. She just looked once more at the station, whispered a goodbye to the friends she had made, and flew straight into the enemy's heart. The Skarn noticed too late. Their ships tried to block her, but she weaved through them like lightning. At the center of their formation, she smiled and activated the core. The flash of light was brighter than any star. Silence followed. The enemy fleet vanished into the void. And when the light faded, only Haven 7 remained, scared but standing. The people mourned Lyra, but they knew she had given them the one thing they had almost lost: hope. Commander Elias limped through the halls, checking on survivors, helping lift rubble, refusing to rest. He knew this was not the end. Others would come. The galaxy was full of dangers. But now the colony believed. They knew they could fight. They knew they could survive. And somewhere in the ashes of that great battle, deep inside a damaged black box from the prototype fighter, Lyra's last message remained. A single line, recorded in her voice, that would be played across the colony for years to come. We're still here. And we're not done yet. The people of Haven 7 rebuilt. They trained. They prepared. Because now, they understood that survival was not just about defense. It was about courage, sacrifice, and standing together. And in the vast darkness of space, that little colony became a symbol. The battle for survival had been won, but the war to protect their future had just begun. The galaxy was quiet after the fall of the Arkan Dominion, a tyrannical alien empire that once ruled hundreds of systems with cruelty and fear. For centuries, they had crushed every enemy, every rebellion, every spark of hope. Their fleets were unmatched, their technology centuries ahead, and their soldiers trained to kill without mercy. But their arrogance was their weakness, and in the end, it was not a mighty armada or a secret weapon that brought them down. It was a single human named Rin Carter, a man they once laughed at, a man they never took seriously. He wasn't a general or a warrior. He was a technician, a former engineer from a broken Earth ship, captured during a failed resistance mission. They tortured him, mocked him, and then threw him into a prison on Arkan Prime, the heart of their empire, thinking he was useless. They called him the Terran Clown, always cracking jokes, always smiling, even as his world was reduced to ashes. But behind that smile was a mind sharper than any blade, and while they laughed at him, he planned their fall from inside the shadows. Ren spent years inside that prison, quietly observing every routine, every security flaw, every crack in their perfect system. He fixed broken machines for the guards, always with a grin, always pretending to be harmless. They never suspected him. After all, What could a lone human do? He made friends with other prisoners, forgotten warriors, smugglers, hackers, even an Arkan defector who had seen the truth of his people's cruelty. Together, they built a secret network beneath the prison floor, using scraps and stolen data. Rin's jokes became signals, his laughter a code. When he laughed loudest, it meant something big was about to happen. And the guards, thinking he was simply insane, ignored him, right up until the night the stars burned red. The plan was simple but deadly. While the Arkans celebrated their victory day, a grand event filled with parades, fireworks, and speeches, Rin and his team unleashed a virus into the central AI network of Arkan Prime. It wasn't just a shutdown. It was a rewrite, turning their own security systems against them. Defense drones turned on commanders, shield generators collapsed, communication towers exploded. The entire capital fell into chaos in minutes. And in the middle of it all, Rin walked out of the prison gates wearing a stolen officer's uniform, laughing as the alarms screamed around him. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He walked straight to the main broadcasting tower, stepped in front of the galaxy-wide feed, and delivered one message to every corner of space. You thought it was a joke, but this is the punchline. That moment sparked a revolution across the stars. Oppressed worlds rose up, inspired by the human who had taken down the heart of the Empire with nothing but brains, courage, and a wicked sense of humor. Arkan fleets were ambushed. Supply lines were cut. Resistance forces, long thought crushed, surged back with renewed strength. But Rin wasn't done. He had one final move left, one last laugh. Deep beneath the capital, hidden in a vault guarded by the highest-ranking Arkan officials, was a device known only to a few. The Omega Protocol, a fail-safe weapon meant to destroy entire worlds if the Empire ever fell. Rin knew about it. He had seen it during his work fixing systems, and he knew the Arkans would use it out of spite. So he broke in before they could. The vault was a fortress. Traps, sentry bots, security codes changing every second. But Rin had spent years preparing. Every laugh, every sarcastic remark, had been a layer of distraction while he learned everything he needed. He slipped through the defenses like a shadow. And when he finally stood before the Omega Protocol, staring at the device that could wipe out millions, he didn't destroy it. He reprogrammed it, not to explode, but to broadcast. Now, every time the Arkans tried to use it, the system would hijack their signals and play Rin's mocking voice across all their channels. "Nice try," he'd say, followed by a burst of laughter. That was his final revenge, turning their ultimate weapon into a joke that humiliated them again and again. The fall of the Arkans wasn't just a military defeat. It was a psychological collapse. Their fear-based rule depended on power, mystery, and invincibility. But now, every time they tried to assert that power, the galaxy laughed. Their enemies laughed. Their allies laughed. Even their own people began to question everything. Within a year, the Dominion crumbled. The once mighty empire broke into warring factions, too embarrassed and disorganized to recover. And Rin Carter? He disappeared. Some say he died during the final escape. Others believe he still moves through the stars, wearing disguises, planting new ideas, whispering rebellion in forgotten corners of the galaxy. But wherever his name is spoken, it's always with a grin, and one phrase echoes behind every tale. The Terran clown had the last laugh. Generations later, children across many worlds tell his story before bed, not as a warrior's tale, but as a lesson that intelligence can win over strength, that courage hides in unexpected places, and that sometimes the best way to defeat a monster is to laugh in its face. In the ruins of Arkan Prime, now overgrown and silent, a statue stands among the crumbled towers. It doesn't show a soldier or a king, just a man with wild hair, wearing a prisoner's uniform, holding a wrench in one hand and a smile on his face. Below it, a plaque reads, "They feared weapons. He gave them laughter." And that was the end of the empire that ruled by terror, undone not by armies, but by one man who refused to stop laughing.